right. Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Really appreciate having you all here. Very excited to get going again. I know that, we've had a very successful season here of going through these webinars. This is our last webinar of the 6-week series. And so really what we want to cover today, we're going to go back and revisit some items from last week, which was about lead scoring. And then we'll also touch on some more lead handling items. But just want to make sure that you guys are aware of that. There will be some of both. But as more folks come in to the meeting here or to the webinar, just want to make sure that we feel good here. If there are any questions in advance or items you want me to cover today, just let me know. Happy to take questions throughout the conversation. You can post them in the chat below, or if you have questions, you can use that feature as well. Otherwise, I think we can go ahead and dive on in. So let me make sure I have my screen ready here. Right. Boom. So since we started this, we've also rebranded. We're no longer NerdWise. We are now PeopleLinx. And our new thing is not to sell more wisely, but to go to market faster. And that's what we do here at PeopleLinx. It's all been roughly the same. There's a really wonderful story of us transitioning from NerdWise to PeopleLinx. And I'll share that with you real fast. So our founder, Patrick Baines, before he started NerdWise, really early in his career, he was an early employee at LinkedIn. And when he left LinkedIn, he was recruited to help start a startup that was focused on helping Fortune 500 executives actually have a presence on LinkedIn when it was still early in the market. And so that company, they actually called PeopleLinx. And he and his co-founders were very successful, made a very successful exit with PeopleLinx. And then after they sold it off, they each went their own separate ways and started their own companies. Well, Patrick founded NerdWise, and it's done very well. We've had several iterations of the business, but had the ability to actually go back and buy the PeopleLinx name and domain. And so here we are again. It has quite a bit of sentimental value, but I think it also, the name speaks more to what we're doing in terms of linking people together. NerdWise was somewhat more challenging to share exactly what it is that we do. So that's the story there. If you haven't actually, quick intros or agenda here. I'll introduce myself. We'll talk on what lead scoring is and how to build out a prospecting process, how to leverage scored leads, and then what measuring success can look like. And of course, if you have any questions, you don't have to wait to the very end if you don't want to. You can interrupt me, but we'll also make space here at the end of the call. If you're new here and haven't met me yet, my name is Max Herman. I'm the VP of Sales and Client Strategy here at NerdWise, and I've had a really unique opportunity so far to bring on lots of new clients for us to support, but also to help manage our team on the customer success side of the house and really drive success for those clients. And then this is my wife, Sydney, and my son, Henry. We live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So if you're ever in the mood for a cheesesteak or cheering on the Eagles and you're in town, you can call me. But to kind of cover what the typical lead generation process looks like, it looks a lot like Sisyphus and his boulder pushing up the hill and then constantly falling back down. I think just about every salesperson at some point in their life has felt this pain. It's really hard. And effectively, what it looks like is individual prospect research, taking even a few minutes if going through a list of, say, 50 people and you want to do a little bit of research on each one, it could take you 2 hours. And then you do manual outreach to each one with a call and a personalized email. So basically, this just takes up a ton of time. You get unqualified follow-up like, hey, Jim, I don't know if you saw my last email. Hey, Susie, I don't know if you saw my voicemail. You're hoping for the best. And all this results in really poor conversion rates at the end of the day. And as an SDR, which I once was early in my career, it feels like pushing a boulder uphill. With something like NerdWise, it's incredibly efficient in comparison. So the first thing we do is define the go-to-market strategy. Who is our ICP? Who's the best possible customer? And I'll detail what an ICP is in a moment, but effectively it's your ideal customer profile. And then we build out automated outreach and provide lead scoring data, which is going to be the subject matter of our conversation today. This is going to allow for really targeted and specific follow-through, resulting in much higher conversion rates. And this feels much more like, skiing down the mountain, where it's just easy breezy as you go. And this is really what we want to create for our clients. And so we'll define some terms here real quick. I'm going to throw around. I clearly should have added ICP to this list. So we'll start there. So ICP is your ideal customer profile. When you're building out this ideal customer profile, it's like, who do I have the most traction with? Who are our best customers? Or if you don't have customers yet, who do I most likely want to work with? Do they have, how am I going to best solve a problem for a particular type of person? And you can have several different ICPs. One is going to be your core, and maybe some secondary and tertiary ICPs along the way. And once you have that really defined ICP, this is going to allow you to build lists of those contacts a lot easier and not waste anybody's time, especially your own. From there, we define prospects and leads a little bit different. So a prospect is someone that you are targeting, say that line on that list of potential contacts. You're engaging them, but they have not responded to you. So that's a prospect. Then once they show interest, they're now a lead. So you're able to actually start having conversations with them. That's the difference. Conversations takes at least two people, right? And their prospect, it's just one person. And then email automation is just kind of a scalable platform where you're able to send several hundred or even thousands of emails at any given time from one system. So instead of having to send copy and paste emails, that's not automated. So that's automation. Your total addressable market is part of your ICP, but say you serve book publishers, like CMOs at book publishing companies with revenues over $20 million a year. Well, how many how many CMOs at book publishing companies over $20 million in revenue are there? If there's only 100, well, that's your total addressable market. And the way you go about addressing them or going after that 100 people will be very different than if you had several thousand possible contacts there. So understanding your total addressable market will define some of how you actually go to market. And then from there, lead scoring is what we're going to talk about here. And it's essentially what feels like, as I was putting this together, it's like, man, this feels like a really complex system. But as you kind of build it out yourself, you're like, oh, this is relatively simple and very powerful, but it's essentially an algorithm that allows you to predict or see the interest that a prospect is showing throughout your campaign. So without further ado, move on. So here's what lead scoring really is broken down. And there are several platforms out there that will help you run this yourself, but you're effectively going to make an algorithm. So an algorithm is effectively an equation that you build out yourself. So think of if-then statements. If the dog goes outside when it rains, then it comes inside all wet. That's an algorithm, right? So effectively, what we're going to build out here, and there are, trust me, plenty of much better algorithm metaphors than what I just used. But in any case, you're going to want to create your own algorithm based upon, and you can weight each of these items, but it's going to be based upon location, business size, industry, buyer persona, clicks, and site visits. So if I want to weight, say, a certain buyer persona as the highest ranking item, and then perhaps business size second, if those are the highest rated items, but someone scores higher with clicks and site visits, this buyer persona still might rank higher than someone with a lot of clicks on your emails or visits to your website. And it will allow you to prioritize your outreach overall. And with really sophisticated marketing, you can actually engage each of these people differently, right? And there are plenty of platforms out there to do it. But effectively, the whole goal of this is prioritization. So, for example, if you have an inbound lead versus an outbound lead, you treat them differently, right? The inbound lead is actively showing interest. They're actively engaging with you. They have come to you and said, hey, Jim, we want to purchase or explore purchasing your software. You wouldn't send them an outbound email cadence. They already are interested, right? Same for your first conversation with an outbound lead, very different than with an inbound, right? And so that allows you to prioritize these and treat them a little bit differently. So when you're doing this lead scoring, really, it's like there's a Abraham Lincoln, of all people, quote I saw today that said, if you gave me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 4 sharpening my axe. Setting up lead scoring is the 4 hours of sharpening your axe, where it will allow you to be really efficient and moving forward, right? But doing that work in the front end, slowing down to set this up, worthwhile in the long run, right? And you can revisit this once a quarter, twice a year, something like that, and make sure that you're actually accomplishing what you set out to do. So when you look at the entire prospecting process as a whole, so if we zoom out to the whole process, your lead scoring happens here. So as I've been talking about kind of building out a program for prospecting, you want to do the go-to-market plan, define your ICP and your total addressable market, and then start using email automation to run consistent top-of-funnel outreach. And as you're sending that outreach, you want to track and score people showing up to your website and who's engaging with your emails based upon the algorithm that you have set up. Now, PeopleLinx, whenever we set this up for our clients, we have a very simple algorithm that is based upon the opens and clicks and engagement of your target market, right? And we will give real-time updates on that based upon the most engaged prospects, right? And all this is going to drive towards better follow-through and multi-channel engagement, resulting in more meetings and opportunities at the end of the day, right? Here are several different lead scoring tools that you can utilize. So obviously, PeopleLinx is on there, but we're not the only one, and I'm not afraid to share that, right? There are several that are really wonderful out there. I think if my marketing chops are correct, Marketo was the first to really bring to market and popularize this idea of lead scoring, but several others have really followed along and actually building that out. But for example, I think there's also, I failed to mention one other of our partners here, but ZoomInfo also has like a marketing operating system that will allow you to segment these, much like Salesforce and HubSpot do. So those are going to be like larger scale platforms that will allow you to sequence out your messaging. And this is if you have several thousand or 100 leads to engage. 6 Sense is interesting. It's more of an intent scoring platform. They'll allow you to see when your target market is showing interest based off of intent signals, based on their web searches and so forth. And our platform is really based upon email, like mid-funnel engagement there. But yeah, if you don't want to use the PeopleLinx option, there are several out there that are very effective. So here's kind of how you leverage your scored leads and don't want them to waste, right? So say someone is showing a lot of interest, you want to use an omni-channel approach. What I mean by omni-channel, so say they have come to you, say you're going after them by email. Don't just keep going after them by email once they've shown interest. Get in front of them on their LinkedIn. Get in front of them in their, their voicemail or call them, right? Those are the times when someone's showing interest where it is worth the potential rejection of getting hung up on to give that person a call. And also notice the lead source, right? Did it come from someone's outbound prospecting campaigns? Did it come from an inbound lead? Did it come from a referral partner? Did it come from a client referral? Like, what was the lead source? All of those matter in the way that you talk to that customer. I think a lot of times, those of us in sales think through, like, I've just got to get through, I've got my calendar is booked up, or say you're an executive, your calendar is definitely booked up with a bunch of calls. Like, It's just, how do I get this out of the way? Do you want to buy or not? But if you take that moment to, again, sharpen your axe, noticing that lead source will allow you to have a much more engaging conversation. I'd also recommend noticing the buyer persona. The way you engage a CEO is going to be different from someone else in the C-suite, or furthermore, a CEO, a CMO, and a CFO are all going to care about completely different things. CEOs are going to care about the revenues of the company and how it's going to advance the mission in the next 2 to 5 years. CMOs are going to care about, if that's who you're selling to, they're going to care about lead flow and impressions and how that affects the overall company growth. CFOs, they care about the bottom line, and they care about actual ROI on these platforms. Furthermore, like a CISO or a CTO, they're going to care about altogether different things and making sure that their teams can run efficiently and have the best tech stack. And you notice those things, and it seems like, yes, Max, duh, of course. I think oftentimes we just want to put people in a funnel and get them to buy now, or get out of the way. But when you notice those things, the way you talk to them, when you can craft your message based off of the things that they're much more likely to care about, a much higher likelihood you'll have closing deals. And then obviously you want to route these appropriately, right? So if you have a pretty large team, you're going to want to route certain leads based off of their source to maybe an inbound SDR, or the outbound SDR converts it to, XYZ salesperson. These platforms I showed you a moment ago will have routing tools in them. Ours does not, full transparency, but they will have routing systems in there so that you can effectively route those interested leads to the right person so they close faster. Right? We don't want to waste your prospect's time or yours, right? And then here's kind of what it looks like to measure success. So I've been talking kind of high-minded here, trying to make it as practical as possible, but it's relatively high-minded stuff, developing lead scoring. And if you've never done it before, the question kind of becomes with anything new, it's like, how do I know that I'm doing this right? I don't know about any of you guys, but at one point in my life, I did CrossFit. It was really fun. I loved it. You can tell that all that muscle has gone away. But in any case, it was a lot of fun, but I really had no idea what I was doing. And the most frustrating part of like doing CrossFit is like, especially if I tried to do this at home or in like just a regular gym, I wouldn't know if I was doing the lifts right. So having someone walk with you to help you measure success and measure what you should be doing, even a slight tilt here or there can drastically improve the way that you lift really heavy weights, right? So here's what they need to look like in lead scoring. You're going to want to test conversion rates, and some of these can be early in your actual development. So if you want to run a report or just manually look up, okay, here are the past 100 customers that I've brought on. What was the timeline to close? How long did they stay with us? What was their retention rate based off of each market? What industry are they in? What was the ACV? How satisfied? So CSAT is customer satisfaction. NPS is Net Promoter Score. How likely are they to recommend you? Out of all of these things, where did you see success in the past 100 customers? And that will define your ICP and define your algorithm for lead scoring. Once you have that picked out, moving forward, do you want to get 100 of the same kind of customers, or do you want to go after different ones? And so you're monitoring over time as you're converting deals, which of these categories are you getting the most success in? And then kind of like reiterating on your lead scoring based upon these drivers of success. These are what I use when I'm working with our team to kind of decide where in the market do we want to go next, which customers are the happiest, which ones are seeing the most success, who's the most likely to renew, etc. And that's how we kind of derive our go-to-market strategy in our lead scoring. And one other thing that could be useful, and I talked about this a few weeks ago in terms of building out your ideal customer profile. But for example, what are the tangential industries that we can go after when we get a new customer? So we at PeopleLinx had worked with quite a few private equity firms. Well, then we realized, like, you know what? Let's bring in investment banks and let's bring in venture capital firms. All these folks kind of speak the same language. They do very similar things. I bet we can see success in these other areas. And sure enough, we did. So we've gone after more of those. And so being sensitive to these things, even if they're not showing up in the metrics, are also worthwhile to track there. One other item I want to show you guys here. I found a quick report. Now, this is a lot of information, mind you. But there's a company called Topo Analytics. They were recently purchased by Gartner. They put out a report of how you should engage based on touch points of each segment. If you want this full report, I think it's like 10 or 12 pages. It's very insightful, but I found like what I consider to be the best screenshot for this conversation in terms of designing your campaigns based on each segment. So this is the element here, number of touches, channels, etc. And then inbound, outbound, and then account-based marketing. So I'll kind of walk you through this. I think it seems relatively streamlined, but they're obviously all different. So for an inbound prospect, you're going to need a lot less touch points, but you're going to have more people to engage more than likely. Outbound, you're going to have more touch points, but to fit that all into a day can be a bit more challenging, right? So you're going to go after less prospects. And then account-based is really very, very slow and intentional. This is if you have a very small market, commonly used in like enterprise sales, right? But if you think of an SDR or a full cycle AE, it's their daily activity is probably going to look like 125 touch points across email, phone, and social, versus outbound, a bit more targeted, right? And then limited more so still with an ABM type model. And then from there, these are kind of like the results that one could expect. If you want this full report, let me know. It's not mine, but happy to share it with anyone who is interested here. And just in terms of how to think through, okay, based on each segment and based on lead scoring, you'd want to have some version of this based on someone's score, how many additional touch points one should likely be using, okay? And really, that's the meat and potatoes of our conversation. So that may be record time. Usually these last just a little bit longer than 30 minutes. So a little fast today, but it's relatively simple, lead scoring. I think the concept is simple. Actually building it out may take some time, but very worthwhile at the end of the day. If this does seem a bit complicated or time consuming, let me know. Our team would really be happy to help. And maybe it's on just defining whether you've got it correct. Maybe you do want to outsource it. Or maybe you want to have one of the other folks on your team own this. You're welcome to reach out to us quite literally anytime. We'd be happy to help. We talk about this stuff all day, every day. I'd be happy to lend some of our time. See a question in the chat here. You got it, Skip. We will follow up with you on this if we can be helpful to you. Are there other thoughts or questions here before we wrap this up? Happy to hang out a little while longer. If you guys have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat there. Again, I know this was very fast. So if I missed something or something seems confusing, please let me know. But yeah, if you guys feel good here, if you feel like we've covered all the items that are important to you, you may consider class to be dismissed. You may enjoy the rest of your day and some time back in your calendar. I'll stick around here for more questions if anyone has some. Otherwise, yeah, this has been great, guys. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure talking with you all. You're welcome to stick around or ask questions if you'd like. But that is going to be the end of our conversation. All right. Well, I'm sensing that there's likely no further questions here. So I'm going to go ahead and end the conversation. But guys, thank you so much. It's a pleasure talking with you all. We're starting another series of webinars very soon. We're calling them fireside chats. So stay on the lookout for those. We'll post more about it very soon. Otherwise, it's a pleasure. Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye.